everyone. My name is Melissa Swink, and I'm the founder and CEO of a virtual assistant services company where my team helps small businesses, nonprofits with administrative, marketing, and operational support behind the scenes so that they're not limited to their own capacity. I am super excited for today's conversation how to build systems without becoming a systems person. That's going to be a relief to a lot of the founders who are listening because I think many of us, all of us, should be all of us, many of us know that we need systems in order to continue growing and scaling our businesses and organizations. But we often hesitate because we think that it means learning complicated tools or building a huge tech stack, and it can seem really, really overwhelming. But what I want to share with you today is just a few tips and tools and conversations around why founders resist systems, even though we know that we need them. What simple systems actually look like, because again, we can way overcomplicate things. I am really great at that. So I love having other people around me that kind of help bring things back to a simple level where I don't just kind of go down my own rabbit hole. And then we're going to talk about where AI and automation actually help with all of this. And then we'll bring it back to why systems still need people and why both are going to be really important for the overall growth of your company. And so, with that being said, I want to introduce my co-pilot for today's conversation, Alane Boyd from Biggest Goal. Her company helps businesses build AI agents and workflows that actually simplify how work gets done. Alane, thank you so much for joining me today.
So I'm so excited. This is my absolute favorite topic to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. And I know I have learned so much from you and Micah, your counterpart over at Biggest Goal, and your team. And I'm super excited to have you dive in for this conversation. So before we dive into all the nuts and bolts of the AI and automation and systems, let's just chat a little bit about why founders resist systems in the first place. As I mentioned, it sounds intimidating and complicated and maybe even boring, just depending on your leadership style or your strengths. If you're a founder who's very creative and loves working with people, or you have those influencing traits where sitting down and designing a system might sound really, really boring to you. The other thing that I think, even just in my personal growth journey with growing my company, is that oftentimes I have found that my revenue generating activities seem to take a higher priority or take, a front seat to building out the systems and things that support it. And then certainly eventually we get to a point where the systems can't be ignored because even though the business is growing, it starts to feel really, really chaotic. I think another reason why founders resist systems is that we have all tried so many different tools and software and systems over the years, and it just has added so much complexity. Like, Elena, I would love to have you jump in and share your take on this as well. But I know even for myself and so many clients, if I just think of CRM systems alone, how many systems have people tried and eventually abandoned because it was just too complicated or didn't knew what they needed it to do? And that's just one example of a tool. So, Elaine, with that being said, have you seen this with clients as well, or maybe you've even experienced this as a founder yourself?
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at my personality type, I am not a systems person. My personality on Culture Index is a persuader. Mine on 16 personalities is an entrepreneur, which is surprising or not surprising, but just that because I have a systems company, it doesn't mean that my personality tends to be systematic, but I had to evolve into, I got asked so many questions in a day when I was building my previous company that I was so tired at 6 p.m. and I hadn't even started my work. Because
Sure.
if it's everything is living in my head, there's not a system for people to work in, then I am the system. And
Yeah.
so I couldn't scale. And it really got to be difficult to grow my company when I was trying to avoid being the systems person. And once I started putting those things into place, what I saw is not only was I getting more things done, but my team, they started staying longer. I had less turnover and my clients got happier. And
Yeah.
we weren't working, they didn't have to work so much. And so that's when I really started to believe in this. Now, to your point about, like CRMs as an example, and This is 100% true. And I'm glad that you even mentioned this, is that people believe that the system or the software that they used is the problem.
Sure.
And sometimes it is. If you're a small company, you don't need Salesforce. That is way too complicated. There are much
Mhm.
easier platforms to use that are going to solve your problem. But what happens is nobody does any training, nobody does any systems making it part of the workflow and thinking through those things. And they think the software is the problem. And I see that with project management systems. I see that in every software platform that they believe that, oh, it's the software. It's too complicated. And I'm like, no, you got to rewind a little bit. What's your culture like? Are you making people use the system? And by that, it's like, did you put that in ClickUp? Did you put that in Pipedrive? Did you put that in Asana? Great.
Yes.
And then build a workflow around it. Don't just use it like a checklist.
100%. And that's actually a perfect segue because we want to simplify this. And so let's talk about what simple systems actually look like. Systems are just consistent ways of doing things. It's not complicated tech. So to your point, we want to simplify as much as possible the repeatable things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis for ourselves, for our teams, and also with that consistent accountability of using the tools that we have in place in the first place. So, but with that being said, systems don't have to be complicated. And so they can be as simple as, I love that you brought up ClickUp as one of your examples. So a task or project management system, even all the to-dos that need to happen on a day-to-day basis, where do those live? Who's doing them? When are they doing them? Even those simple bits and pieces of information can live in a system like ClickUp, or we use Asana. Monday.com is another popular one, certainly. Clear communication channels, certainly. There's email, there's, the Teams chats, and there's Slack, and there's, our team uses Voxer, like a voice messaging walkie-talkie kind of an app. There's so many, like, where are we even communicating? Where are things being documented, like your SOPs, or even just simple checklists? These are all systems. So like you had brought up Salesforce, that's a huge system. And for the right company, it's fantastic. But let's just simplify it down first before we even start looking at tools of here are what our systems actually what they look like, what do we need from there. So with that being said though, Alane, and this is really where you and your company shine, is when companies have these simple systems,
Mhm.
how can we leverage AI and automation to help us work smarter and not harder?
Yeah. I mean, to really leverage AI in an automated way, and we've got to grow past just using ChatGPT or other AI chat. Like that is the minimal thing that you can do that's expected now at a company. Really thinking about how do I make this automated and using AI to work autonomously and get tasks done just like workers is, well, you have to have software. You cannot automate people. So that has to be a part of a system to automate in the first place, because if not, we're still doing it manual with people. At a bare minimum, even if the only one piece of software outside of email that you used, you really need to have a project management system, because that
Agreed.
is where work, that's your hub. And that's how you can delegate work. That's how you can build descriptions into tasks, that you can have templates. And even if you're a person of one, you could still use this, because then you're not running everything from your head. And it's a
Yeah.
really hard thing to overcome. This, like, well, it's just me. Like, I know how to do everything, but it's going to be even harder to delegate.
Our brains are a lousy storage tool.
Yes.
I have been saying this for years. And if you're like, my brain is great, it's not that we're saying that your brain isn't good enough for whatever goals or whatever you're doing. It's just, it's not a great storage device because you can't possibly keep it all up there. And the other thing is that if it lives in the brain, it is impossible to delegate to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, like you say, having that project management system. I mean, you and I could probably do a whole talk on why these are important and so fantastic. But like you say, going back to some of your early experiences as a founder of being the Q&A bot for your company. I had a different name for it. I have it air traffic controller, where
Yeah.
like everything came through me. That was like some of my first iterations of having a team.
Hmm.
And It's too much.
It's too
So
much.
having this in a place that's outside the brain is huge.
And once you do that and you have it into your CRM, your project management system, and there's even stuff you can automate with Slack and Teams. I just try to avoid that because Teams use that as a crutch. They think
Sure.
that that is how communication should happen. That stuff gets lost. You
Yep.
give it 10 minutes and you've got a whole nother set of threads happening. And so when we're wanting to automate, agents are incredible. They are an AI agent. Think of it like an intern on your team. It is somebody that knows how to do one job really well. And once you have a template and software and systems, then an agent acts like a person on your team and they can get that job done and do it consistent every time and follow its instructions every time and eliminate hours and hours of work. And because of this, we name all of our agents.
I was just going to ask, can you share a little bit, Elaine, because you have a list of agents that you and your company have built just for your own internal purposes. This doesn't even include all the work that you've done with clients.
Yeah, we have 12 humans on my team and 40 agents who work for us.
And they're all named.
And they're all named Perry, Kronos, Rhea. Like we have fun naming them. And sometimes they rhyme and different things. But, and then we took it to another level because I'm like, okay, well, who's responsible for this agent? Because sometimes like I have a podcast, Automate Your Agency. And so I have a team member that leads that because we still need humans. So I have a human team member who leads it. But then I have 4 agents who are responsible for getting the work done. Well, when we want to tweak something, if we want to change how that workflow is happening or the instructions the agent has, who's responsible for that? Well, the manager is. And so I created an org chart and humans are colored one color and agents are colored another, and they're under their team lead so that that team member is responsible for keeping those agents updated.
100%. Elaine, can you give some examples of where AI can save the most time for small teams right now? Like, can you give an example of some of the tasks that you have assigned to your agents in your company? I know you and I have talked about like customer onboarding or client onboarding. You have shown me that workflow, which is very impressive. Just to name one example, but I know you have many.
Yeah, that one saved 2 hours of time. And so now new client onboarding happens in less than 1 minute and is saving a human on my team 2 hours of work. And so we always think about these when I'm having conversations. People think, oh, well, I don't want to lose that one-on-one touch. I'm just really personal with my clients and I don't want to lose that. I'm like, the 2 hours you spent onboarding them, they did not see. They just saw that it took them a week to get because now they're in a backlog of when a human has time to onboard them.
I
That's
love that you
losing the
said
human
that.
touch.
Yes, I love that you said that because I have an operations background, even prior to starting my company and, with some of the consulting that I've done. And we used to call that value add versus non-value add. So when I think about, client onboarding, the most important things certainly are going to be your interactions with that client and getting, that launch call or the kickoff meeting, what have you. But does the client really care if you or an AI agent were the one to add their contact info to your QuickBooks or to add them to, your our flow desk to send that welcome email series? It does not matter to them. And one thing, in the operations space that we would say to people when we were consulting is value add, non-value add. Value add, if you were to put it on an invoice, would a client think that's an acceptable thing that they'd be willing to pay for? Like, so if you say, kickoff, launch call or kickoff call, yeah, that's something that's value add. If you said, add your company information to our QuickBooks, they'd be like, I'm not paying you for that. Yeah, so that's one way to think about it.
Love
So
that.
value add, we absolutely want to keep the human touch there, but the non-value add stuff, it's always more cost effective to leverage a system or a tool or an AI agent to do that before we leverage manual labor.
Yeah. I mean, we have Polly who creates our proposals for us. So we've got templated proposals that we've created in PandaDoc. It has access to our CRM, or Polly does, and Polly has access to our recordings from our sales calls. And when we the manual step. Now there are some manual pieces. We still need
Of
humans.
course.
We
Yes.
move in our CRM, we move it to proposal stage for that contact. Polly goes in, sees the transcript, picks the correct template for that discussion, and fills it in. It saves on average 4 hours, and it nails it so much better than a human can, because we cannot take all that context, all that information, and put it in as consistent as an agent. And so that's a value add versus not value add. Like the time
Correct.
that it takes to create a proposal is a burden. Most
Mhm.
founders, if they're the ones doing it, are doing it in the evening at the very
For
end of
sure.
their day,
Yep. Yep.
and where they've eaten dinner, they've cleaned the kitchen, and now are doing the proposal
They're
that has
sitting
been
down
on.
to do the proposal.
Yeah,
And that's important work because that's revenue generating activity. But you're
exactly.
exactly right. The value comes from having that conversation with that potential client, understanding their needs, asking the good questions, and then you're right, leveraging an AI agent to take that transcript and create a proposal on your behalf that you then can go in and fine tune and you can tweak and all of that before it gets sent off to the client ultimately. But that's a huge step saved. That's so much time saved.
Yeah. I mean, that one's probably my favorite because they're not a client yet. You're not going to
Mhm.
sell every single one you put in proposal stage. And
Mhm.
it just does such a good job.
Yes. Yes, you're right about that. That's a good point. Even when you think about, what is value add, what's not value add on the sales perspective, there's also the sales that you're not going to win at all. And so then and not that it wasn't valuable for you at the time or anything like that, but you also have to understand that some of this work is not going to actually materialize into dollars for your company. So
Mhm.
that's another smart way to do it. I love that. To kind of wrap up our conversation, though, I definitely want to close the open loop on why systems still need people. And I love how you described your org chart of having color coded roles on the team of this is a human, this is an agent, because these systems don't run themselves.
No, they don't. I mean, we absolutely still need humans. The
Mhm.
agent is only doing what we tell it to do,
Yes.
and is it needs instructions. The instructions come from a human who's an expert in that piece of whatever it needs to do.
Mhm.
And so but it gives us the time to be creative, strategic, smart, thinking through
Yes.
things instead of creating a deal in Pipedrive, creating a folder in Google Drive, all these
Yep.
tedious things. And,
Mhm.
going back to the personality traits, this is not my personality to live
Sure.
this way. I want to live up here and have a
Mhm.
team of people doing things. And when I did Culture Index, because I was doing way too many things in the once,
That's
my
very
my
common.
happiness score was so low compared to what my output score should be. And it
Okay.
was because I didn't have some things in place to
Mhm.
to do those. And so once we started doing more automation, taking those things off my plate, and I'm also, if I look at my team members' personality, they're all architects.
Okay.
So that's another thing. Like if you're living in this founder space where you're like, oh my God, this doesn't sound fun, I don't want to do this, find somebody that loves doing those things.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And I love that you mentioned that because I've even shared with you and being fully transparent with our audience, I'm learning this and I also don't necessarily have the time and energy to build these agents on my own. So I have a wish list. I've shared it with my team and we're working through that because I do need that help with getting this off the ground. One thing I wanted to touch on as well of why systems still need people is because this is not set it and forget it. And I know we're focusing on AI and automation, but even just in general, there are SOPs that I created for my team in order to delegate work 5 years ago. Those SOPs are nearly obsolete at
Mhm.
this point because we are working differently with our clients. We are using probably different systems, or the systems that we're using have evolved so much and updated so much over time that we do need to revisit those SOPs because they do become outdated. And I know one thing that we had brought up as well, Elaine, in some of our conversations is even AI agents, a system that's it's connected to doesn't update. Maybe you need to do a little bit of maintenance work or update work and make sure that agent is still functioning normally. So we definitely need human oversight on all of that as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, they all those things, and it's still less time than you would be paying a human, even doing the
Right.
maintenance pieces of those things. And
Yes.
so you can keep your team tight and really happier, because a lot of people don't like doing just data entry or
For sure.
tedious stuff or so.
Yes. Yes, 100%. Job satisfaction is something that has just continued to go up as well because you're right. There's not a lot of satisfaction that comes from, manually typing something in and copying it from one document and over to this system and all of that. So,
And we're
yeah.
prone for error when we do that.
Yes,
Everybody's so worried about AI making errors. I'm like, humans are the worst ones.
humans make errors too. Yes. Oh my gosh. And, or somebody was talking to me about, AI hallucinating. I'm like, but we hallucinate if we are given too much information as well, where it's like drinking from a fire hose. We can't make a good decision if we just have way too much information with no context either.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
happens. It
it
happens. Oh
does.
my goodness. Elaine, this was such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that our audience is going to be very inspired based on all the different things that you shared with, the agents that your company has built. I hope that I have shared some things that have made the idea of systems far less complicated or overwhelming for founders who are like, this is not my jam. This is not my kind of thing. So, if there's anything that you take away from today's episode, I hope that it's that you don't need to become a systems expert in order to run a growing business. Really, the goal ultimately is simple systems, the right agents and automations, and the right support around you in order to really gain that leverage and momentum and to make things happen in your business. So, in the description box, I will share links to both my company and Elaine's company. Certainly, if you're looking for some additional support in your company, you need that human support. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. And certainly with Elaine's company, Biggest Goal, highly recommend checking out some of their AI builders groups and cohorts and to learn how to do all of these things for your own organization. Elaine, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes, have a wonderful day, everyone. And we will be back again soon with more topics to help you build companies with intention and make sure that they are something that you can scale beyond your own capacity with different, supports and tools and systems and all of the things. So, love having these conversations. Have a great day, everyone.